sit back, relax, and let's have a chapter chat. Today, we have the privilege of talking with Courtney Walsh. She is a New York Times best-selling author, and she is such a joy. I follow her on social media, and she is just going to make you smile today.
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. And you have a new release, Brighter Than Before. I've had the opportunity to read it, and it is so much fun.
Oh, thank you. I had a lot of fun writing this one. I think it was a little bit different because the main character is a little bit older. She's in her 40s, and it's also set in a big city, which is a little different because sometimes I like to do. I mean, I love a small town, but I really loved setting this one in Chicago.
Well, that's what I loved, is that you have the main character in her 40s. What made you decide to do that?
Honestly, I think it was a combination of a lot of things. I had several friends who were sort of going through similar things that she is going through, that my character is going through, and I think they kind of inspired me. And every time I would hear about one of my friends, going through a divorce or, for whatever reason needing to start over, I would, you ask yourself the question, what if that happened to me? What would that look like? What would I be doing? And so I think that's sort of where it started, was with that idea and that question. And I'm closer to that age. And so I think it really was one of those things where I wanted to write something for somebody who had just kind of been through some stuff. And, women, we're so layered, and we have like different versions of ourselves, and all those versions I think are really important. And I guess I just wanted to take a look at this one, which is old, through a chunk of life. She's got a daughter. And the daughter doesn't really need her anymore because she's off at school. And I think a lot of us sort of feel that empty nest and, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And then to have her husband leave at the same time, it kind of was like a perfect storm of what if questions,
Yes. And what are you hoping that readers get out of Brighter Than Before?
I think the big thing that I really loved was just the whole idea that it's not too late.
Right.
And even when the world kind of crumbles around you, and I mean, we all go through things that we have to overcome, but just that sense of, I mean, I'm going through this now because my youngest is about to go away to college, and there's a sense of like, all of these years, you're sort of defined by being a wife and a mom. And obviously I have other things in my life that I do, but that's a huge part of your identity. And your friends are kind of tied up in your kids' friends' parents. I mean, those are the people you're seeing so often. And so now it's like everything just stops, and kind of at the same time. And so it's a little bit like jarring, And so I think one of the main things is asking ourselves, okay, what do I really want? And taking a look at your life and saying, well, it's not too late. It's like, oh, I always wanted to take an art class. Okay, well, go take it. It's okay. You can do that. Even if you're, 55 years old, you can do that. I saw this video of this woman. She was in her 60s and she'd always wanted to dance, and she kept dancing. It wasn't like she abandoned it completely, but she picked up and moved to New York and just fully is pursuing dance. And it's so inspiring. Yeah, it's so inspiring just to see stuff like that, because it just reminds you that these things that pop into my head sometimes, where I'm like, my son is an artist, and I'll look at his art and I'm like, I wish I had learned to do that. And he's like, you should take an art class. And I'm like, oh, but then I'm sort of like, I could take an art, you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter. You're not too late. I think when you stop learning, that's when I mean, I love to learn new things, and I think we all should be learning new things. And I never want to get to a point where that ever stops, no matter how old I get.
I think that's a great philosophy to live by. And I have one child, and she's in middle school, and I've already found myself thinking, oh my goodness, there's not too many more years until she'll be going to college. And not too long ago, she said, well, Mom, when I go to college, you're coming with me, right? I said, well, by that time, I don't know if you'll want me to come with you.
Yeah.
It was so sweet. And it just really made me think, oh my goodness, she's growing up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of sobering when you think, oh my God, like I've seen people like count up the number of weekends you have with your
Yes.
kid before they go off to school and things like I will tell you, I have adult children as well. It is so cool. I mean, it's hard to parent adult children because they don't really need you to parent them, but so
Yeah.
you have so much to look forward to, but it is really different. It's a lot to get used to. And so I think just exploring that. I don't see a lot of romance written for women that are in their 40s. And
No.
I was kind of nervous to do it because I thought, I don't know if I'm going to lose my younger readers. I don't know if people are going to find this interesting, but I love a character who's been through some stuff. You know, she's she's had some life behind her, and now to just have all of it sort of like the rug sort of ripped out from under her and then have to kind of start again. I mean, that to me is really pretty interesting. And it shows her resilience and her strength to be able to like mourn what she needs to mourn, but then pick herself up and move forward. So yeah.
And I think you did a great job showing the different layers of this character's personality.
Thank you. Thank you. It was fun. I mean, it was really fun to think, okay, I'm going to put her in the city. My son had had a surgery in last March. And so we ended up going to Chicago way more than we wanted to go to Chicago. I'm not going to lie, but I had been to Chicago. We live close to Chicago. And so, you know, being able to explore some of these neighborhoods and see different places where we had not seen. I mean, we've been to all the touristy things, but it just sort of like showed me that there's this whole beautiful world that I am not privy to about Chicago. And so it was really inspiring. I think it's a beautiful city. And so I kind of fell in love with it. And that was really fun to kind of send her, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to send you to a small town and have you buy a cottage. I wanted to send her to a city, and which is a little intimidating. You know what I mean? Because I think for someone like me, if I were to go live there, I would be so overwhelmed, but also energized because it's like, there's so much energy in a big city. You know, there's something to do all the time. So being able to take her out and kind of explore and send her on these dates that her daughter's setting her up on. And, you know, it really ended up being so fun. And then the whole found family element of it, that's something that I absolutely love to do. Bring together people that are sort of unlikely and their circumstances, bring them together and then show how they actually kind of all needed each other all along.
I think found family is just a great element that I've actually seen in books recently. I think that people really latch onto that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's that whole idea that this is another area where I feel like it's not too late. I mean, I will see people that have friends, you know, I think it's hard to make friends as an adult.
Yeah.
And if you are lucky enough to have the same friends that you've grown up with or you've had, you know, your whole life. I mean, I don't live in the same place that I grew up in. And so some of my high school friends will still get together, but I'm not there anymore. And so you feel kind of the distance and you're not going to necessarily have that same knowing of a person who knew you before you became who you are. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there is the promise of still like really rich female friendships. And I think we all kind of are searching for that. But it's not easy to find, I don't think. I mean, because we're so busy, there's so much going on, and then you throw life into all of it, and then the awkwardness of having to be like, hey, do you want to be my friend? It just feels a little weird. So that was another thing I like to explore, and I think that desire to be known, not just from a romantic partner, but like just to be known and have people that can see you at your worst and lift you up and all of the things. I mean, that's universal. And so I think that's something that does kind of enrich a story, but also a life, you know?
Well, I think that is very interesting that even though maybe you have some friends, but they're at a distance from you, you still don't feel that connection like you do when you're physically present in front of
Right.
someone. You just can't get
Right.
the nuance of the relationship or the understanding of the relationship like you can when you're face to face with someone.
Right, right. I agree. I have a lot of long distance friends and I love them. I talk to them every single day. But you're right. I mean, if it's kind of like, I had a bad day, do you want to go get coffee? Or like when they have a bad day and I'm like, I wish I could just bring you like dinner today, you know? And
Right.
so not being able to do those things and like show up for people in that way, you do kind of feel the absence of that. And I hate that aspect of. I'm so thankful that technology brings you together with people that you might not know otherwise, but it is kind of sad when they, I had a friend who went through breast cancer not that long ago, and I would have loved to just like not even be like, hey, I'm here, but just like, hey, here's a basket of things that just let you know I'm thinking of you or whatever. And you can't do that when you live on the other side of the country.
No, you can't. And there's only so much that you can get from a text message because,
Right.
again, there's nuance that you can miss, there's tone that you can miss. You can't always understand that with the relationship.
Right. Right.
So nothing replaces face to face. And you can't really know
Right.
someone on the deepest level unless you are physically in their presence.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree.
And something that I've noticed because I do follow you on social media is that your romance is a little different than maybe we see in some other romance novels. It's not spicy.
Oh, yes. It's not
I like
spicy.
that.
I was like, wait, how is it different? Yeah, no, it's not. I I have a couple different reasons. I mean, I have a lot of reasons for not writing super spicy novels. But the crazy thing is there are people that still don't know there are romance novels out there that don't have all the spicy stuff in them because a lot of the really popular ones do.
Yeah.
And so I think, being able to write for the reader who doesn't necessarily want they want the love story. Like for me, I think about the early 2000s rom-coms and oh my goodness. I mean, I just loved them. And for the most part, they didn't have a lot of like spicy content in them. And I mean, those are still like my comfort movies. And so I'm sort of writing books that I think kind of fill that gap because they don't make movies like that anymore.
No.
And I also work with teenagers. We own a performing arts studio and a youth theater, and so it's important to me to. I mean, I think I would feel really strange if some of them read my books, and it would feel awkward to walk into a rehearsal and have them be like, "I read that scene you wrote." You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's part of it too, but I just think that sometimes it's the love story that I want. It's the swoony parts. It's the, Mr. Darcy squeezing his hand together. It's those kind of moments as opposed to like all of the open door content. And I think there's a lot of people that would, prefer, I mean, obviously spice is very popular and it sells, but there are also people who just really want the love story part of it as opposed to all of the other stuff.
Yes, that's why I love you so much because I fall into that camp. The other makes me a bit uncomfortable, you know?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I just kind of love just the love story, the sweet love story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's how I am.
I also always think, like, what if my daughter picked up the book?
Right.
What would I want her reading? And
Right.
sweet story about a relationship that is innocent, like that speaks to me.
Yeah, I agree. And also not having like not glamorizing a toxic relationship.
Right.
I've seen like there's some different things that I've seen recently, mostly in movies, where it literally will say in the description, it'll say something about how toxic the relationship is, but they can't stay away from each other. And I'm like, wait, what? And as a mom, you do think, I don't want my daughter thinking that's okay. So I want to write the kind of relationship that I'm hoping that my kids will strive for and have it be healthy and lots of communication and you know honoring boundaries and that sort of thing. I do think that's all really important, and we don't always see examples of that in media, books, TV, movies, whatever it is. It's not the necessarily the trend. So yeah, it's a little different. And I mean, I've had people, I ran into an old friend at the grocery store and she said, I had no idea there were romance novels out there that didn't have like, I've just been skipping over the parts I didn't want to read. And I'm like, oh my goodness, no, there's definitely books out there that you can read without having to skip things. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on writing.
And how has that been with publishing? Because I know that the others are pretty popular and there's a market for it, but has publishing been difficult when you're like, no, I'm intentionally going to write this way?
I think once I realized that my audience, like when you first start writing and someone says, okay, who are your books for? You just want them to be for everybody. Like you're just like, everyone who likes romance is going to love it. And when you realize that's not true, and if somebody goes into your book wanting spice and they don't get it, they're going to give you a low star rating. And so when I started to get really intentional about telling people, this is what you're not going to find in my books. This is what you are going to find, and this is what you're not going to find. I think I found my people. I'm starting to find my people a little bit better. And that has been hugely helpful because I think setting that expectation right at the start is crucial. I mean, if somebody goes in not wanting spice and they get blindsided by it, they also aren't going to be happy with their reading experience. So I want to be very upfront, very clear right from the start. Hey, this stuff is not going to be in my books. And then hopefully the right reader is going to pick it up. And I think that's been the key that, is sort of a light bulb, being okay not being for everyone, which is hard when you're a people pleaser. Once you sort of realize like, okay, it's okay if not everybody likes this book. Not everybody's going to like this book. Someone like my husband is not going to like this book. That's fine. I think that really helped kind of zero in on what I needed to do, and it helps you find your audience better and the people who are looking for exactly what you're writing.
Yeah, and you're not going to be for everyone. We even say that in the
Right.
journalism industry. Not everyone's going to like how you deliver the news, but that's why there are choices out there.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is I always say like I support everybody's right to read whatever they want to read, but I just want to find the people that want to read my books. I just want to be super upfront with what they're going to find in the pages of those books. So yeah, I think that was a big eye opener for me. And I think I had to be in this world for a little while before I was okay thinking, not everyone's going to love this. And I'm okay with that. Yeah, because it just initially you're just kind of like you're just kind of throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall, hoping that the book finds the right people, not realizing, no, you have to be super, super descriptive and specific about what you are getting and what you aren't getting. And that is pretty huge.
And you're a New York Times bestselling author.
Yeah, which is crazy. That was crazy.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Bring me back to that moment.
Oh, it's been a long time ago now. And I just remember my agent called me and she's like, are you sitting down? And I was at a trade show. So I was working at a trade show because I used to work in the scrapbooking industry. And I was like, no, I'm not sitting down. And she's like, can you go somewhere by yourself? And so I just started walking out of the booth. Like it was in Chicago. It was this big convention, trade center. And she said, guess who hit the New York Times bestseller list? And I was like, who? Still, I was not getting it. And she was just sort of like, your book is on the New York Times bestseller list. And I'm like, what? And so she kind of like dropped that bomb. And then I was so, I don't think I really processed it. And I also don't think I understood. Like now I understand because I've written many more books that have not hit that list. I'm like, oh, that's hard. That's hard to do that. Like, I don't know if I necessarily appreciated it at the time for what it was, but now I'm sort of like, okay, yeah, that was really cool. I wish I had taken more time to kind of just celebrate that moment because I did a bad job of that. And that's one of the things that I think my husband is really great about pointing out to me is like, you got to celebrate the small wins, appreciate this moment for what it is. I've gotten better about that as I've gotten older, but it's definitely like, has to be a conscious decision. So yeah, that's one of my regrets that I didn't do that with that moment because it was very cool.
That is such a cool moment. And forever, you will be known as a New York Times
Right?
selling author.
That's crazy.
Great. It's great. So let's talk a little bit about your writing process. How long does it take you to write a book?
Everyone is completely different. I am not a plotter. So I will typically, my process starts with a what if question. So for instance, with this one, it was, what if I had to start all over at my age, like now? It's not, I'm not figuring out my life from like, okay, I'm leaving college. I'm figuring out my life from, okay, everything I thought that I had set up for myself is gone. So what am I doing now? That kind of what if question. Then I start to build the character. The character is kind of, I learned to create characters in acting. I have a theater degree. So for me, it was funny because it was never about creative writing. It was always about creating the character for the stage. And the process is really similar, but I feel like acting, I think every writer should take an acting class because you learn how to like slip on the skin of another person. I mean, you have to embody when you're doing it on stage, you have to embody that character. And that means how they walk, how they, are they hunched over? What's their posture like? What do they eat? All of those questions that you go through, not just like, what do they do for a living? Where do they live? Like all of those, obviously, but like who they are as a person. And so I start building the character and then the story and the plot and the action all comes from that. And so I like to write a more character driven. Usually I'm like, I know these people, but what in the world are they doing? What is happening in the book? And that's always the hardest part for me to figure out externally how to make that part of it interesting. That's the part I struggle with. So then I start writing. I'm a very fast writer. I try to write for really long chunks at a time because I don't like to get out of the story. But when I'm drafting a story, I'm not the most present in my real life. So I'm trying to fix that because it's really hard because, you're in that story. You don't want to leave because I don't want to lose any of the detail. And that is something that I find that's part of why I do it. Like I'll get up, I'll work out, I'll sit at my desk with my coffee and I will stay there, getting up obviously to like stretch and whatever, pretty much until, 3, 4, 5 o'clock at night. And I didn't used to be able to do that when my kids were little, but now that's kind of how I do it. So I can get a lot of words in a day. So that's sort of my process. And I don't know. I think every writer has their own process. Every process is different. I don't believe in telling people there's one way to write a book. I think there's as many ways to write a book as there are writers. And so I would never say my way is the right way. It's just a way.
It's kind of like putting together a news story. Every reporter has a little bit of a different style. You can't say, oh, this is the only way you can do it.
Right. And there are people who will try to do that. Usually they're trying to sell you something, like I'm going to teach you how to write a book. Well, I'm going to teach you one way to write a book. And what I found is like, it's important to kind of learn people's process and hear them out and hear what they do. But just to hold like if I was trying to plot every book, I would be miserable. It just doesn't work for me. The fun of it is just sort of like exploring the story and like discovering the story as I'm writing. That's the fun part for me. So if I were just outlining it all out, I mean, I kind of have like a really loose outline of where I'm going. But if I were doing that, I think it would take all the joy of the whole process out for me. So I try to just, make it fun as much as I can.
And when you say that you're a fast writer, you can get that first draft done in about what?
Probably, honestly, probably between like 1 and 2 months for the first draft. But I'm also going to edit that a lot. I'm going to edit as I go, and then I'm going to send it to my editor, and then I'm going to, usually what happens is once I finish the whole thing, I read the whole thing and edit it one more time. So I've got 2 edits in before I send it to my editor, and then my editor has it, and then I get it back, and then I do another pass on it, and then copy edits, proofread. I'm really thankful that I learned how to do the whole process of writing and how much it really takes through working with traditional publishers who have just been so great. It's so nice to have a team of people and not feel like you're just floundering by yourself. And they're, obviously typos might slip in. We're all human. And there might be some things where it's like, oh, I missed that. But just to know, it usually takes this many passes. And it's not just like I would love it if it was like, I wrote it and now it's out. Like I would love that but there's so much other work you have to do with it. So I'm thankful that I've learned how to be more meticulous, even though it is a little daunting and overwhelming on the front end of that. But yeah, and there have been other books that I've worked on for 5 or 6 months. And then the one that I just turned into my editor, I think I worked on it for about 4 months. And then I got a different idea and I threw away everything I had written and I started over. And then the draft, because I was so excited about the new idea, I wrote the whole draft. I mean, it was rough in a month, in about 4 weeks. And I definitely had to edit it. But
Yeah.
I think when I'm super excited, I can write really fast. When I'm like loving the story, I can write really fast. And it wasn't working before. So I threw it away. It was heartbreaking to be like, I just wrote almost 50,000 words and now I'm just chucking it out the window. But sometimes when it doesn't work, you have to pivot, you know?
You do. You do. And you kind of know when it's not working and when you're trying to
Yeah.
force it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a gut feeling, you know, and sadly, it's so sad when you're like, I know it's not working. And I become a little bit miserable to live with. I know I feel bad for my family, but because sometimes it's like, I know it's not working, but I don't know why it's not working,
Yeah.
you know? And so you'll sit there and kind of agonize over it. It's like, what in the world what isn't clicking here? And that's very frustrating.
And you like to write some holiday books as well, right?
Mhm. I do. I wrote my first Christmas book that I wrote just totally on a whim, really because I was at this place in my writing career where I was like, I think I might quit. And my husband was like, well, I don't think you should quit. And I was like, well, it's just not going well. Like, I don't know if I want to do this. And so I took some time off and then we went on vacation. We were going to Gatlinburg and it was right after COVID. So we were driving and I'm sitting there, nothing to do. You're in the car for 7-8 hours. And I'm looking out the window and I'm like, what if I wrote a Christmas book? And my husband was like, I mean, you could write a Christmas book. Go for it, do it. I had been told that Christmas books aren't the smartest thing to write because you can only market them for a really limited time of the year. And I was like, what if I wrote a Christmas book and it was about a road trip? And my husband was like, I don't really like that idea. I'm like, I love it. I don't care if you like it. I love it. I'm going to do it, And so here were two things, he told me he didn't love the idea. I had this in the back of my mind that it wasn't smart. And I was like, I don't care. I want to do it for fun. I want to do it because it sounds like it's just a short novel, something super fun. And I tell you what, I had such a blast writing it. I love Christmas. My mom is like the queen of Christmas. So I loved like infusing all of the Christmas stuff into that book. I had so much fun. And it really changed the trajectory of what I wrote. Our daughter she had been diagnosed with thyroid cancer a couple years before that. And I think I just needed something light and fun. And I needed something that wasn't dark or heavy or emotional because that's my life was, Plus we had COVID and my son broke his leg. So we had all these things kind of happening all at the same time. And I just needed a mental break and a reset. And it unlocked my absolute, I have, with one exception, I think every year I've written a Christmas book since then. And I think I probably will until I run out of ideas because it was such a blast. And now they're like my favorite. It's like my favorite thing to do. So,
And do you have another one coming out this year?
I'm hoping to. So I'll have Brighter Than Before releases in June, and I've got some things that I'm kind of working on, and I have a Christmas idea that I'm hoping to put out, by the end of the year.
That's going to be a quick turnaround.
It is, yeah. And I know that because my middle child is getting married this summer too. So I'm sort of like, I'm going to hold it. That's the other thing. I just sort of, with my indie books, I just hold them loosely. I'm like, this is what I want to do, but I'm not going to kill myself to do it. That's my hope. But also I know better than to tell everyone what I'm doing for sure, because it never works. Once I say, this is my plan, it's like my life is like, no, it's not. Don't tell people that. So, yeah, I've learned that the hard way.
You've worked with traditional publishers, so you have that portion of your career. And then also you said your indie books also.
Yeah, I do both. I'm like a hybrid. I want to say Cross Country Christmas was probably my first. I had done a couple of other indie books, but that was my first, not affiliated with anything else I had written, just like a throw it out there, standalone indie book. And it really kind of, people ask me all the time, like, well, what should I do? Which one should I do? There are such good things about both of them, and there are hard things about both of them. Really, my only complaint about traditional publishing is that it moves slower, but that's not really even a complaint. You know what I mean? Because I love having the team. There are so many good things about it, especially when you get people that you can ask questions. I mean, it's such a solitary thing to write books. And so to have people that you can bounce ideas off of, and, you're looking at cover design and it's like, well, what do you think? I'm feeling like this is not working, but I don't know why. And to have somebody kick around those ideas, that's huge. When you write an indie book, it's all on you. Like, you have friends you can ask, but you're the decision maker. And you have to really you have to look at it like a small business, and you have to like that part of it. If you're just wanting to write books and throw them out in the world, then it doesn't work that way. You have to do all the other things. So it can be incredibly overwhelming, but it can also be really cool to be like, I did that all by myself, So there's pros and cons to both, but I use everything I've learned in traditional publishing in my indie books as well. So it's just, it's such a process. But I love that there's the option for authors to get their work out there like that.
Yes, I think options are fantastic. And I know that readers have a lot of options for what to pick, but I would recommend Brighter Than Before, because it really is fantastic. And Courtney, we have enjoyed talking with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being here.
You've been listening to Chapter Chat. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy reading.